Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second podcast of the Sports Fix podcast. I'm here again with my friend Tyler Sutton. How you doing, Tyler?
Doing great.
And so we're coming to you today on Saturday, January 19th, weekend of the conference championships, the NFL playoffs. Looking to go over last week's games and preview tomorrow's championship games. Also, a quick shout out to my Tennessee volunteer basketball team, number 3 in the nation. I might move up number 1 this week. Looking really, really good. I just wanted to give a shout out to them. That's all I had to do. So, Tyler, the divisional round was last week.
Yeah.
What did you think of the division round in general? Like, how was it coming out of the weekend? What did you think about it?
For me, it was pretty predictable. Nothing too surprising. I think the only not surprising, but the only interesting game was, I think, Rams Cowboys. But I mean, the Eagles-Saints had an interesting first half, but then the Eagles were non-existent in the second half, and I don't know, overall it was just kind of boring, I think.
No, that's true. For me, I was unimpressed with any of the games in particular. The Rams-Dallas game was okay. I was just shocked that there wasn't any upsets. The top seeds won every game.
Yeah.
And I feel like that just doesn't happen very often. That was the biggest surprise for me. I was waiting for it to happen. And, I thought Philadelphia was going to do it in the first quarter. I mean, they go up 14-0, and the Saints team looks completely lost. And then, how about it? But Taysom Hill, I think, honestly, the Taysom Hill's fake punt was a big momentum swing
Turning point
for that game. I think that was it was a completely different game after that. The Saints had a ton of momentum. I mean, it wasn't the most high scoring game, it wasn't the most interesting game like you said, but Philly's offense they just died after that first quarter. They couldn't move the ball, and oh my gosh, Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think about that? Do you think they should have? Hindsight's 20/20, but would you have tried to run that play with 2 minutes left right before the 2-minute warning?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I probably would have. And then, yeah, I don't know. It's hindsight's always 20/20.
I think. Well, the thing is, it was a good play. Alshon was open. He had it in his hands.
It
just slipped through his hands.
Yeah.
And that was, I don't know, that was rough to watch. I felt so bad for the guy. Because, I looked at the replays. I mean, he had it in his hands. The pass was right on target. So, you can't fault them for going for it or trying to get the play off before the 2-minute warning.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think you're down 6 points. You got 2 minutes left in the game, and they're at the 30-yard line. I mean, they've got 2 minutes is a long time, especially when you only have 30 yards to go. And I feel like they should have hit the 2-minute warning, calm down, and come out. I mean,
just run the clock.
Yeah, I mean, they don't want to give New Orleans too much time, and hindsight is 20/20, and knowing now, I think they would have done things differently. But at the same time, the play that they drew up, I think, was perfect. It's just it slipped right through Alshon's hands.
Yeah.
The Chargers New England game, that was over in the second quarter.
Yeah.
Final score was 41-28, but it was not that close. That makes it seem like it was actually somewhat of a competitive game. But when you consider it was 35-7 at halftime, Yeah, it wasn't.
Patriots were just playing how they play in the playoffs. I mean, the Chargers, they put up a decent fight. It was like 28 points they put up, but, I mean, I don't know. It's tough to beat New England at this point.
New England and Foxborough in the playoffs is just a different animal. Although for all the Patriots haters out there, I saw a statistic the other day that I couldn't tell you the exact statistic, but basically when Tom Brady's at home in the playoffs, he's basically perfect. He throws for 300 plus yards a game. He's got like 42 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Crazy stats like that. But when he's on the road, he's actually very beatable. I think I saw, they're not on the road very often, but when they are on the road, I think his ratio is 8 touchdowns to 8 interceptions, under 200 yards, under 200 yards a game passing. And so for all the Pats haters out there, I think Kansas City's got a pretty decent chance to knock them off this week. Speaking of Kansas City, that also was a game that I thought was going to be a lot more competitive, that Indianapolis could have had a good chance to win, and it was
hardly even close. I mean, they didn't score an offensive touchdown.
No, they didn't.
They got that punt block.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it.
Yeah, that was all that they...
a couple field goals.
Mm-hmm. That's all they had going for them, which is crazy, because Kansas City's... I did not think their defense would be able to come through like that. That was... Eric Berry did come back a few weeks ago, and that defense has been improving since then, but I was shocked that Indy could... it didn't even look like... It was almost like the New England game. They didn't look like they belonged on the same field. It didn't feel like a playoff game. It was very... I'll admit the LA, New England, and the Indianapolis, Kansas City games, I just turned off at halftime because it just wasn't...
Yeah.
I wasn't interested in the game whatsoever.
I did too, actually. Yeah.
I knew who was going to win, and there wasn't really much doubt in my mind. I didn't need to see the second half to have that proven to me.
Yeah, especially because the Patriots only get better in the second half. So if they've already got the lead, I think for the Chiefs and Colts, I wonder if it was the weather that played a big factor for the Colts, because everybody was slipping and so many dropped passes.
Mm-hmm. It was really cold there. It was.
Yeah.
Indy's always been known as they don't play in a dome anymore. I think it's a retractable roof, but they've always been known as a dome team. I remember when Peyton Manning played there, he was always considered a dome quarterback. He couldn't go out and play in the cold weather, and it was true. He couldn't seem to. Anytime he was on the road in the playoffs, it always was. They always seemed to really struggle.
And Kansas City has so much speed. I think that, when it's hard to run after someone and tackle them in the wet field, speed kills in weather like that, and I think that gave them a big edge.
It's true. The conditions were not the best, and I heard it's weather this week's not going to be very great either. So we'll see how that goes. I'll tell you what, though, it was a big surprise of that game to me. So in week 14-15, Kareem Hunt, running back for the Chiefs, has the tape go viral and gets put on the commissioner's exempt list and basically is kicked out of the NFL. And there are a lot of people. Kareem Hunt was really good while he was there, and so people were wondering how that's going to be able to translate, if they're going to be able to be the same team. And their third string running back, Damian Williams, comes in. A lot of people thought Spencer Ware would handle the workload, but Damian Williams comes in, and this guy, he looks like he's made for that offense. He's a scat back. He's very quick. He's a Tyreek Hill type. It seems like it's Patrick Mahomes thrown to a bunch of speedsters.
Yeah.
and that's the entire offense. And tell you what, he looks like he fits in that offense perfectly, and he comes in and I think he's averaging like almost 100 yards a game rushing on the ground. I mean, that's for a guy that was third string on your roster 4 weeks ago. I mean, that he's been really impressive to me. I think he's been a real sleeper. I think he's going to play a big part throughout the rest of Kansas City's season and into the future.
Yeah, and you see a lot of guys like that. It's like because the other teams, they're not prepared for a breakout player like that, and so they do even better than they probably would have, and so it's a real mismatch for a lot of these opponents for Kansas City because they don't know who this guy is. Nobody really knows who this third string guy is, but yeah, that's tough.
Mm-hmm. Also, I mean, speaking of that, I mean, C.J. Anderson.
Yeah.
I want to talk about his resurgence. Got cut by the Broncos last offseason and been through a couple teams this year. And L.A. picks him up with like 2 weeks ago in the season. And this guy, I mean, I almost wonder if, I mean, it's got to be true. I mean, it's not just that these guys are super talented people, but like, it makes me wonder how overrated Kareem Hunt and Todd Gurley are because like these backups that people, that are considered washed up or nobody's heard of. I mean, C.J. Anderson comes in and rushes for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, I'm not saying that Todd Gurley's overrated, but if C.J. Anderson can get that kind of production, I mean, right. You got a good offensive system going for you. I mean, you got to credit Sean McVay and that offensive line and Jared Goff, all that stuff. I mean, there's a lot more than just being a superstar. You've got to have a team around you to perform well.
Yeah, and maybe I'll say it, but even before C.J. Anderson, I thought that Todd Gurley was a little bit overrated because obviously he's a great athlete and he's a great running back, but the offensive line creates so many opportunities, and especially now, like you said, with C.J. Anderson, really kind of exposing how great that offensive line is at setting up big runs for them. I mean, it takes a lot of good decision making on the running back's part, but they create holes for anybody to run through.
Yeah, it's that Rams team. After seeing them in Dallas, I would not be surprised at all to see them advance to the Super Bowl, especially if New Orleans played like they did last week against Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that actually with New Orleans and Philadelphia. What New Orleans was the first half of the regular season was like unstoppable offensive juggernaut. I feel like that team was just so talented and so good, wiping out everybody that they faced. And the second half of the season and these last week's divisional round, they were very I don't know, they haven't seemed the same team, and
they've definitely slowed down.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that's just Drew Brees' age, if his arm isn't, if he's getting up there and he's thrown too many passes this season, or his arm's starting to wear out, or because he's had an incredible season, but it makes me wonder if age at all is starting to affect him, or if or what's going on, because the offensive production for the Saints has not been the same as it was earlier in the season, I feel like.
Yeah. LA's definitely been the more consistent team throughout the season. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got, for my pick, I got to go with LA Rams advancing, because they, for the fact that they've been beat by the Saints so many times, I think that gives them an advantage. They'll be able to overcome they've had the opportunity to learn from their mistakes going up against the Saints, and then on top of that, the Saints slowing down, and that first half against the Eagles. I mean, they eventually pulled it off, but you saw that if they do what they did to the Eagles against the Rams, I think the Rams will take advantage of them for sure.
For sure. I mean, I honestly, I think for this week, I mean, if New Orleans comes out and plays up to their potential, I think that they will win and should win.
Sure.
But based on the recent history and how they've been playing, it's hard for me to pick that. And yeah. I think I really got to go with LA tomorrow as well. But I was watching the game, and I mean, I remember the first half of the season, Alvin Kamara was going for 100 rushing yards and 50 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns a game, and was just absolutely insane for them. And I don't know if teams have just figured out how to contain him, or if the Saints aren't using him as much as they should, because when he gets the ball in his hands, he's an incredible athlete. He can make some people miss. This wasn't this season, but I remember last season, Drew Brees threw him a screen pass during his rookie year before people kind of knew who he was, and he made 5 defenders miss within 5 yards, and just walked into the end zone. And I remember seeing him at that point, and I was like, this guy's going to be special in the NFL. I just don't know if they've been using him as effectively as they can. And I feel like that's a big reason for their struggles. I mean, Michael Thomas has been great for them. They've had a lot of other weapons. Mark Ingram's a great running back. Traquan Smith's been a great rookie this year. They have talented playmakers all around. But I feel like if the Saints really are going to get back on their offensive pace, but get their swagger back, they've got to play through Alvin Kamara, because that guy is a freak of nature on the field. And so I really think if the Saints are going to win, they're going to have to play through Alvin Kamara for sure.
Yeah. They're going to have to... Yeah. They're going to have to expose that Chiefs defense for what it is. It's hard to... Or not Chiefs.
the Rams defense.
Rams defense, yeah. Which is tough. I mean, it's a tough group.
Mm-hmm. I feel like these championship games, I mean, not that there's ever not good teams in the championship games, but we have some really quality teams.
Yeah.
In these championship games. So we're both going LA for LA and New Orleans. So for Kansas City, New England, what do you think the keys for the teams are in that game?
Well, I think the Chiefs just gotta keep doing what they're doing on offense. Their defense has to be disciplined against that New England offense, which that's really the only thing I'm worried about for Kansas City, is how Bill Belichick's gonna pick apart that defense. Mm-hmm. But I would almost be pretty surprised if New England comes out on this one. I really think the Chiefs have it.
I saw a statistic. I think all 4 of these teams are the top 4 teams in offense in the NFL, and they average 16th on defense. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be actually really shown in the Kansas City New England game. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. Yeah. I think it's going to be a shootout. Whoever has the ball last is probably going to win the game. Or whoever has the ball last is going to have the chance to go and score a touchdown and win the game.
Yeah.
I think.
Right.
And after seeing Kansas City's performance last week, I had doubts with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes being his first full season starting. But after seeing them just take out Indy like that, I think this is going to be... both these games are going to be really good, but I think this game could be a really fun shootout to watch.
Yeah, the highlights for Patrick Mahomes last week, that dude, I actually had to pull him up on Wikipedia. I'm like, is this really his second year? Because he just looks so good. I mean, hands down MVP candidate. I think that's the biggest factor for them being so good in the playoffs is just Mahomes doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. He's just up there. He's young. He's fresh, and I think it's going to be the younger, faster, more athletic team is going to beat out the older, wiser New England Patriots.
Yeah, no, I think this Kansas City offense is just too explosive, and that New England defense has been exposed. Wasn't last week, but it has been exposed before, and they're playing at Arrowhead, and I think Kansas City can do it.
And like you said, with Tom Brady on the road, the stats are against them in that way.
Yeah. So I'm thinking a Kansas City LA Super Bowl. That's my prediction.
That's what I'm feeling. Which would be a pretty nice Super Bowl, I think.
Oh, I love that. I think it'd be awesome.
Two fresh teams that haven't been in a while.
Young quarterbacks. I think that the battle of young quarterbacks. I think what's really interesting is New England and New Orleans have the older veteran quarterbacks, and Kansas City and Los Angeles have the younger, more dynamic quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And so we'll see if that veteran presence could have a large effect on the game, or on these games. But the talent, I think that Kansas City and LA have is just there's a lot of talent all over the field. Not that there isn't a lot of talent all over the field for the other teams, but specifically Mahomes and Goff are just, they're young guys. They're really good at what they do, and I think they're probably more. I can see both of them leading their teams to the Super Bowl. Which I'll tell you what, Super Bowl is going to be very interesting. I think Super Bowl is going to be a really fun one.
Yeah.
No matter who goes, I think this is going to be a really good one.
For sure. And with talent on all sides, like you said, top four offenses, I think it'll be more of a battle of wits and who can. It's going to be definitely more of a chess match. Like, say, even if it is Kansas City versus LA, probably the two most athletic teams in the league going up against each other, I think they're going to kind of neutralize each other on that aspect, and it's going to be more coach versus coach, and who can use their athletic team more wisely. Because it's in the Super Bowl, it's all about calling the right plays and executing those plays rather than just doing what the Chiefs have been doing, like throwing it deep to Tyreek Hill or running the ball up the middle with their running backs. But
this, I'll tell you what, like I mean, I've made my predictions as for who I think is going to win, but it could very easily go the other way. It could be New Orleans versus New England in the Super Bowl very easily. I think it just depends on how teams play. I think if all teams play up to their potential, I think it's Kansas City versus New Orleans. But just I don't see New Orleans. New Orleans just hasn't shown to me the past couple weeks. Now, if they come out this week and actually play up to their offensive potential, I think they could very easily be Super Bowl favorites, because I think up and down that roster is probably the most talented team. They've got fantastic defensive players. They've got awesome offense that when it's clicking, it's unstoppable. And they've got, I'll tell you what, I love Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
like, I've never seen a team use a player like that before, a gadget player. I mean, he comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, he's built like a linebacker, but he can throw the ball. He can run the ball. He can tackle. I mean, he plays punt team. He'll come in on special packages. I think that's a great pickup from New Orleans in last year's draft, because he's been such a I don't know how to explain it other than a gadget player. He's been such a gadget player for them, and been able to, for a guy who's injured so much at BYU in college, I mean, he's been able to come in and make the most out of this NFL career, and I'm happy for the guy. I think he's done a great job with what's been afforded to him.
Yeah, I really it's props on the coaching staff for recognizing the players they have and utilizing their skill sets. I remember the Jets tried to do that with Tim Tebow.
Oh yeah.
It's like that, but this time it works.
Yeah, exactly.
They're using them in the right way. I mean, they had that. They put him in a wildcat, didn't they? And he actually threw a touchdown pass, but it got called back for holding. But I'm like, it was actually the same play that Drew Brees had just tried, and then they put in Taysom Hill.
That's right.
And he got it completed, but I mean, it was called for holding, but it's just kind of like, oh, this guy can do it.
I'm gonna go on a limb. I'm gonna make a bold prediction right now. I'm gonna say that Taysom Hill rushes for and throws for 1 touchdown each. So I think he's gonna have 2 touchdowns this week. Bold prediction.
Yeah, just like in last week, how his play was pretty much the turning point on that punt fake. I think if they use him wisely again, they'll definitely give him the edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just one of those things. I think the Saints have all the talented playmakers. I feel like they've not been utilized as well as they could have, and I think that's where their offensive struggles. Not that they've been struggling incredibly offensively, but they weren't the same team that they were in the first half of the season.
Yeah,
I feel like. So with that, we're going to go to a new segment titled Tough Questions, where Tyler and I are going to ask each other a couple tough questions each about this week. It'll be the NFL playoffs, what we think might come up for what might happen this next weekend. So Tyler, you want to go first?
Yeah. So my first question is, what should the future look like for Nick Foles?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think from a Nick Foles perspective, I think he should be shooting to be a starting quarterback wherever he goes. I think someone will pay him to do it. I don't think that he'll be super successful, but I think someone will pay to have him as a starting quarterback. From an Eagles perspective, I don't know his contract situation. Is he a free agent after this year, or is he still under contract?
I think he's a free agent.
So I think that's a really tough one. It's a really good question. I think the Eagles have said that they're going to stick with Carson Wentz going forward, and I think they should. I think he's the quarterback of the future for them, and he's going to be able to do things that Nick Foles can do as well. I don't think Nick Foles has been incredible in the playoffs and in the end of the season. I think for Nick Foles, he needs to go try to get a starting job somewhere else, and there's a lot of teams. I know the Jags would be happy to have him.
Yeah.
I think plenty of teams that would be happy to have a quarterback that is semi-competent. And I think Nick Foles has also learned a lot under the Eagles' coaching staff. I'm not saying he'd come in and be an absolute flop wherever he goes, but I think that he... I think you said this last week, is he is kind of a system quarterback. He works really well in that RPO system that the Eagles have going for him. And so if he can find a team that's going to run an offense very similar to that, where he has those RPOs, if he has the ability to make those calls on the fly, I think he could be he can be good enough to get a team to the playoffs. Especially a team that has a lot of pieces around it. If they're just missing a quarterback, I I think Nick Foles should look for a team that has a lot of pieces but is missing a good quarterback. And I think a great destination is, like I said earlier, the Jaguars. I think that they're just missing Blake Bortles isn't going to be your quarterback of the future.
Oh my gosh.
But they've got a good defense. Leonard Fournette's a really good athlete. He's a good running back if he can stay healthy. The team in general, they don't have the best receivers in the world, but they're not bad either. They're competent, and so off the top of my head, I think the Jaguars would probably be the best fit for him as far as looking for a team that has pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to comment on that, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, if I was the Eagles, I would stick with Nick Foles and get rid of Carson Wentz. I know I don't know. Nick Foles works, but I totally get why they want to stick with Carson Wentz, and I don't really have an issue with that. But yeah, I'm interested to see how Nick Foles performs if he does go to another team. Because he seems to just fit really well with Philadelphia and what they're doing. But maybe he can adapt. I don't know.
I think he'll be. I like the guy. I think he's got a great story. I think he deserves to have a chance in the NFL to start for a team.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting offseason to see what happens with him, and where they go, where he ends up going, or if he stays at Philly. I mean, who knows at this point, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, my question. Which quarterback will have the most passing yards this weekend?
Most passing yards. I mean, I don't know. It's tough.
So it's
got a lot of good quarterbacks.
So yeah, we got Pat Mahomes, we got Jared Goff, we have Drew Brees, and we have Tom Brady.
I gotta go Drew Brees. Just because that guy always puts up numbers. They pass a lot with that team.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think, because at first I was going to say Mahomes or Brady, but I actually think those two will have the least. I think more of the passing will be between Saints and Rams.
Think the weather's going to play a factor in that? Or
maybe. I just think on the AFC game, there's a lot more running opportunities.
That's
but
true.
Maybe not. I don't know. I gotta go with Drew Brees just because he always doesn't he have the most passing yards of all time right now?
I think so. I think that's.
He just
right.
passed Brett Favre.
He passed. Yeah, he's got the most passing yards of all time. Really, I think. I personally would probably go Mahomes.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna have. I think that team is going to have to score a lot of points to win. I think both teams are going to have to score a lot of points to win. I think that means Pat Mahomes and Tom Brady throwing the football a lot. I think Kansas City is more dynamic in the passing game than the Patriots are. So I think Mahomes. But I think that's a really good point you make with New Orleans and LA is, both these games could end up being super pass heavy. So I'll be interested. But Drew Brees does put up numbers. I'm gonna go with Mahomes. I'll go with Mahomes. But all right.
So my other question was not so much about the playoffs, but the game after this weekend, the Pro Bowl.
Oh yeah.
What? So my wife was asking me about the Pro Bowl and what it is, and all I could describe it as is pointless game where a bunch of the popular players get together and hang out in Hawaii and they just play a light scrimmage together. And it's, in theory, it's a fun idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's for whatever reason, it's never entertaining. It's like, I mean, the NBA does a lot better job at doing an all-star game than the NFL does. And so my question is more of, what should the Pro Bowl be to be more interesting? Or what should be done about the Pro Bowl? Or just what are your opinions on it?
That's a good point. I do agree with you. The NBA All-Star Game is way fun to watch. The guys don't play any defense, which is how the Pro Bowl goes also. But
yeah.
They don't play any defense. You can tell they're having fun out there on the court, and they're throwing up alley-oops to each other, and they're going for monster dunks, and no one's taking the game super seriously. And I think it's hard to balance the Pro Bowl because your biggest fear is injuries. You don't want people getting injured in a pointless game, and they've done a lot to shake it up in the past few years. I mean, they've added skills competitions and flag football and all sorts of just kind of gimmicky things.
Yeah.
The thing is, I like the idea of an all-star week or weekend or something like that where they get together and they do stuff. I think football is just a hard sport to do it in because for a lot of different reasons. So whether it's injuries or it's just the nature of the game it's very, you're hitting each other, you're knocking each other down, you're that kind of thing, and it's hard to have that the same environment as the NBA All-Star game would. Something I think would be fun to see, and they could already be doing this, I don't know, but I think it'd be really fun to have like a 7-on-7,
like flag
football or something along those lines, and these teams just these teams would have to actually draw off these plays and stuff, but doing like wacky trick plays and like crazy stuff. I feel like that, that being like a full you play that for 15 minutes and then the other two teams, you have like a tournament or something where these teams are competing or something like that. I don't know. Football's just kind of a tough sport.
Yeah.
To do anything different with the Pro Bowl. And so it's really difficult to. I don't know. It's really, yeah. I'm not sure. Are you thinking of any ideas or anything?
I like the flag football style, 7-on-7 idea. Like, the only thing is that you don't get as many guys involved at one time, and I know they want to get the offensive linemen in there involved and stuff.
I think it'd be fun to do. Just like goofy stuff.
Yeah.
How funny would it be to have a lineman eating contest for the Pro Bowl? You just see whoever can down the most turkey legs or hot dogs or hamburgers or just something dumb like that. I feel like that'd be hysterical to watch. Yeah. And I just think that they have to find ways to make it less of a game and more of just a it's easy for the NBA to do it because basketball's a completely different sport.
Yeah.
But just finding ways to make it kind of fun and wacky.
Yeah.
And something that's it's just a breath of fresh air. It's different than just a football game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I have a solid, concrete answer though.
I don't think the NFL does either.
Yeah.
They want to make it as interesting as possible so they get viewers and so that they generate more revenue that way. It obviously looks fun for the players. Mm-hmm. It looks like they have a good time. But yeah, I like the idea of just kind of maybe ditching the Pro Bowl entirely and just doing more like gimmicky contests and events like that. That'd be more fun.
Mm-hmm. Or what if they? I mean, it's not. I mean, what if they did like a 3-point contest, like NBA style, like just or a field goal kicking contest with non-kickers or something like that, like stuff that you out of position things. I mean, or things that don't quite make sense. That it'd be still fun to watch. Can Tyreek Hill or Tom Brady make more 3-point shots on a basketball hoop, or can who can kick more field goals? Jake Butt, the tight end from Denver, or Rob Gronkowski. Yeah. Just kind of goofy stuff like that, but I think would make it a lot of fun.
Like a 7-on-7 with just linemen.
That would be awesome. Fat guy football.
Yeah. But yeah.
All right, so my tough question. Who do you think? Do you think there'll be a player this weekend? Just any player on any of the 4 teams that comes out of nowhere and just has this game that no one is expecting him to have, and carries his team to victory?
That's a good one. Like the most underdog. Player.
Someone that you just wouldn't expect. I mean,
yeah.
It can be someone that we know. It doesn't have to be like a no-name person, but like just someone that we wouldn't, you wouldn't expect. This person just gonna come out and just have this monster game. We weren't, if you were to pick a player to have just this monster game this weekend, other than like a quarterback, because quarterbacks can have monster games any weekend. Yeah. Who do you think will or could do it?
I think I kind of talked about it already, but I think C.J. Anderson is going to have a big game. I think the Saints they'll do a good job against Todd Gurley, and they'll game plan for him, but they'll let C.J. Anderson go. I think he has the best chance of being a breakout this week.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go James White, the New England running back.
Okay.
The guy last week, I don't think the guy put up the most gaudy numbers last week as far as like yardage and production.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the guy, on their opening drive had 6 catches last week. On New England's opening touchdown drive, I think the guy had 6 catches on that drive by itself. And I think if they can get good matchups and it gets that Kansas City defense, I think James White could come out and have a spectacular game. Mm-hmm. 100-yard rushing, 100-yard receiving type game, 2 touchdowns.
I could see that.
I think that's a guy you don't hear very much as being part of the New England offense here. Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, Julian Edelman. You don't really hear, James White as much, and I think he could be a guy that if Kansas City doesn't keep in check, he can eat you alive.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one.
Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. Thank you for joining us and tuning in. Next week we'll be discussing this week's games and taking a look at what the Pro Bowl might have in store, and perhaps take a look at the Super Bowl as well. Thank you so much for joining us on the Sports Fix podcast, and if you have any questions or comments on things that we've talked about, or have your own answers to those tough questions we asked, feel free to write a comment and put in your opinion. And if you're lucky enough, we could read your comment and discuss it in next week's show. Thank you very much. Have a good day.